Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I know it's late. It's so nice to see all of you joining me over from Ian's stream. I was totally enjoying his stream and lost track of time and realizing that I needed to hop over to my stream. So welcome to those of you who are new. Ian is incredibly kind and generous, and I love his channel. And I've been kind of lurking in the background and not wanting to interrupt or say anything because I'm new to this still. I'm about 4 months in, and so I've been covering the Gwyneth Paltrow trial through the eyes of a Hollywood attorney. So my channel is really about um, being an attorney in Hollywood. I've been one for 15 years. I've worked for studios like Disney and Skydance, and I've been at BuzzFeed. And so my work has been a lot of company side, representing studios doing actor deals. I've also been on the law firm side representing actors. And so I've been covering the Gwyneth Paltrow trial, looking at it through the eyes of, what would an actor do? And I have to say, I'm really impressed by her, that the fact that she has sat there day in and day out, and Terry Sanderson has not. And I have some feelings about that. I mean, the jury, right? It's not a great look for him, right? Let me know what you think. Please let me know where you're coming in from. If you're coming in from Ian, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. Tell me where you're coming in from, what part of the world. I know it's late. I have to stream at night because I have a full-time job in Hollywood. I have 2 young kiddos. And so oftentimes it's not until 9 or 10 that I can stream. So this has been so much fun because this trial, it's like, I know it's a terrible analogy to say it's a train wreck and you can't look away. And it's like when you're on the freeway, right? And you see a car accident and you just can't help but just look at it as you're passing by, because it's really just these attorneys. I'm coming off of watching Alec Murdaugh's trial from Emily D. Baker, who I love. I think she's amazing. And I would drop in to see the trial here and there because I couldn't watch the whole time. And I mean, those attorneys, Creighton Waters was amazing compared to the plaintiff's attorneys here. And Owens, oh my God, Owens is so annoying to me. I think he's effective, but the level of annoyingness, is tough. And thank you so much for those of you who are volunteering to moderate for me. I am so new at this that I actually I've never actually had this many people in my live before. So thank you so much for joining me. I've been having, a small group that I've really enjoyed, just chatting and being able to answer your questions. So for the small minority of you who might not know what's going on, I've been asked to give just a small summary in the beginning, just in case, right? Any of you don't know what's going on. I'll do it very quickly and kind of through my eyes of why is it that Gwyneth Paltrow is in trial, right? Why has she not settled? I believe there are different stories of she's offered to settle and Terry Sanderson has refused because he's pissed. I've also heard the story that she refuses to settle because to accept a settlement would be to admit fault, right? It's the same thing that I've said in my Alec Baldwin videos, which that's really my space, right? I am a production attorney. I've worked on many, many films, probably over 15 feature films. Saving Mr. Banks at Disney was my first. So that's very, very special and close to my heart. That's, I've said it before, Alec Baldwin would not take a plea bargain because in order to take a plea bargain, he would have to admit guilt, right? And so he has always said, I'm not guilty. It is not my fault. I feel no guilt. Remember that interview with ABC? That was such a terrible soundbite. Yes, perhaps it was an accident, but really don't say you feel no guilt. You accidentally shot someone and took their life. Don't you feel like you should feel some level of guilt? So Gwyneth Paltrow was in a ski accident in 2016, and Terry Sanderson is now suing her. It's been almost 7 years, and here we are in Utah, Park City. In today was the fifth day of trial. Last night I settled, um, and I talked about Gwyneth Paltrow's testimony and how I really kind of believe her. I mean, let me know what you think, right? I mean, I really think that she was believable. I mean, look, I know people don't like her. I know people think that she has this smirk, but honestly, um, I'm not trying to be like snarky here. I've met a lot of actors, like they have had, Hollywood is very tough on women. So a lot of women actors tend to get things done to their face. I believe she might have Botox, so her face does not emote or is not so expressive. And so, I think her smirk is, sometimes you're uncomfortable, right? Like some of the questions that they ask when you're on the stand, it's the same as Terry Sanderson smirking, right? I think a lot of them have been smirking. So I would say I have told myself to be more neutral and kind to her, and let's see where they land. I think this case really does come down to who do you believe? We've had both of them on the stand now. I think Paltrow has never wavered from her story, right? I mean, she is kind of told the truth, told her facts, and I don't think she's ever wavered from it. I mean, she stated that she did yell at him, and but I think that's eh, common sense, right? Like, yeah, when you get knocked down by somebody, especially when she is an actress of her stature, right? She won an Oscar for Shakespeare in Love. And remember, she has had a stalker for over 10 years. I'm sure she's had many stalkers, but there was one that she actually had to testify against in 2017 who had been stalking her for 10 years. So they really are very protective of their space. For her to say that she felt assaulted, I know people are like she was being dramatic, but I actually think that as a woman who's been mugged in a parking lot before, like we really think about our safety in a way that maybe some men don't quite think about in the same way. And that's okay. I carry pepper spray with me when I go to my car, and I make sure to always have my keys out now because that's why I got mugged, was because I didn't have my keys out. So I think her story has never wavered. Today, but I said in my live last night, let's give Terry Sanderson the benefit of the doubt. Let's see how he does today. And I have to say, like his testimony was suspicious. I mean, there were just so many inconsistencies, right? How is it that you could um be face down but see all these things or hear all these things and then say on one hand that that Ramon said this thing or didn't say this thing. I mean, I really believe that he is not an incredibly credible witness, because how is it that his recollection of details is so precise, right? Here's a man who's supposed to have very, very severe brain injury, right? That's what his team and his experts have, um, and experts have testified to. But yet, the level of detail is a little strange. I mean, I can't remember things from a few years ago. Like, I actually, this happened today. Like, we had an issue on a production today, and I had to ask my assistant, like, what happened a year ago? Like, I can't even remember these details. So I think that either he's been obsessed about this and thinking, I mean, it almost sounds like he has been practicing this in his head for like a long time, right? And the fact that he wrote down that I'm famous, and that remember his daughter Polly said, if I could go back in time and tell my dad to not file this case, I would tell him to not file this case. And I thought that was really interesting. And then his second daughter, Shay, who testified, she said, oh, I don't think $3 million is fair. Like, she thinks it's too much. I mean, I think it really is too much. So I think that his testimony is just really, really suspicious. I think let me pull some comments here. You guys are going by so fast. I'm not used to having this many people in my life, so you'll just have to, um, bear with me a little bit. Um, so we'll go into the testimony. I want to talk about the link. I mean, this mysterious link was explained today, right? I really wanted to see a GoPro footage. I wanted to see somebody knocking someone down, and it didn't happen. But apparently, what happened was, um, on the day of the accident, Terry Sanderson wrote an email to his daughter saying, "I'm famous." And then underneath it was a link. And some people had expressed a a guess, right? That maybe this was some hidden GoPro footage that perhaps Ramon had taken, or maybe it was on Terry Sanderson's. It wasn't though. So what happened was some amazing person on the internet found the link and somehow activated it. Some people are suspecting that maybe Terry Sanderson went and signed in and was able then activated it, and someone was able to send it to the defense. And it's basically a chat page of that meetup group, right? That Terry and Ramon were part of, and they met up to ski that day. And basically, they just described what happened. I mean, I actually think, and you guys tell me what you think in the chat. I think that Ramon got, because Ramon's the one that was saying, "Oh my God, did you see like Gwyneth Paltrow was here?" I mean, I think his exact words were, "Gwyneth Paltrow took you down," right? But he was the one that was repeating to everybody, to Whitney Smith, who was the EMT that came and helped them. It was Gwyneth Paltrow, it was Gwyneth Paltrow, and I think all along the chat, it was talking about how it was Gwyneth Paltrow. So this is my guess, right? Not my legal opinion. I always have to say I'm not giving my legal opinion. This is just my opinion. I'm not giving legal advice. But I think he had this accident. He did get injured. I really do believe he has the broken ribs. But as Whitney testified today, she was with him for 2 hours while they were waiting for the car. She gave him a brain test. She gave him those 3 words, right? What was it? Blue Rainbow 24. If whoever remembers, maybe you guys can put it in the chat. I can't remember exactly what it was. And so I think what happened was he was injured. It wasn't that bad. But then after the fact, right, I think Ramon maybe planted the seed of like, "Oh, this is really bad. Like, you should go after her and make her responsible." Because remember when his attorney asked him, "Hey, do you think this is Gwyneth Paltrow's fault?" And he said, "Absolutely." And I was like, kind of taken aback by that, because it's been 7 years, right? And I feel like some of his symptoms could be attributed to old age or to dementia. And I feel for him. But actually, when he started talking today, I didn't really feel that sorry for him. I mean, he seemed completely, you know, he was very articulate. He seemed to be connecting with his attorney. His story is, oh, he's lost everything in his life. He's lost his relationships with his daughters, and now his life has, forever changed. I don't know. I mean, I'm really suspicious about that. Um, let's take a look at the testimony, and we can go from there. Um, let me see. So this is, I think this is where the judge is about to give the instructions on. Hmm. Oh, so they've called Ramon back, right? Because they have to have him read in the link, right? The testimony.
Okay, your first comment on
The chat.
page 4. I'm just going to read it to you and
From the
ask you
group.
to confirm that this is what you posted. But before we start
This
that,
is what
you'll
was
see
in the
it
link,
says
right? This was the mysterious link.
2,588 days ago.
I would not
Yes,
be
I see that.
surprised if somebody in Emily D. Baker.
And this was probably before the ski crash, but on the same day, correct?
I'm not sure exactly.
Okay.
So I'm guessing it was probably it was right around. Which one are you talking about?
The one in the middle of the page.
I'll just give Deer Valley your pass. Yes, that's
Okay.
that's
So
true.
you wrote or typed in that day. Just give Deer Valley your pass. They have your photo. It will be a great day. I will be on the hill at 9:30. That's your first posting that day, you believe?
Yes.
Okay. And then at the bottom of the page 4, you have another post. Well, maybe.
I agree with you
let's see.
there. I think
I
there
guess
is
that one's
that they deleted.
a different one, maybe.
Oh, it's Blue Snow 24. Thank you.
Maybe that's a different day. I'm going to move to the next one.
That's true.
Let's go to page.
He was blind in one eye during the accident, right?
6 of 9. Can you go there?
I don't doubt that. The law nerds are very strong.
Okay, I'm going to read just what you typed in there in the middle. It says, Scott, Terry was not doing the man thing. Terry had a bad hit to the head. You do not have the ski patrol take you down the hill if you have a pain in your ass. Is that what you typed that day?
Yes, it is.
This was the day of the crash.
This was a few days after.
Okay.
Yes. She was part of Harvey's group of victims.
Then at the bottom of that, page 6, we're going to continue to 7. It has your name, and then it continues on to page 7. I'm going to read you what page 7 says.
You're right, Lex. It was slow.
Scott, the thing you did not see was Terry was knocked out cold. Bad hit to the head. Not too sure if Terry has broken ribs. I did see Terry did not know his name. I asked Terry what his name was, and he did not know. Scott, it scared the hell out of me. Is that what you typed? That was on or around the day of the crash, or after the crash?
That was a little bit after, a few days after the crash.
Okay. Then page 7. You have another comment.
I want to go in and straighten
You
his
see that?
tie.
Yeah, yes, I do.
And you typed, Scott, thanks for the humor. I got it when you were trying the whole thing. You guys did not see what I did see. No need to say you're sorry. You typed that, correct?
Yes, I did.
Then the final page 8 of 9. And under your name, it says, you cannot make this up. Gwyneth took out Terry last week. Last Saturday, her son broke his arm skiing at Park City. Gwyneth was staying at the Montage. She took her plane out of Million Airport. I wish I didn't know so many people. What makes me mad is that Gwyneth took out Terry and just took off. Is that what you typed that?
Yes, that is.
Okay, that part, by the way, is like super gross. Like, why are they like? Is he stalking her? How does he know about her son breaking his arm? And it really feels like more and more to me that he is the one that became obsessed. Ramon became obsessed, right, with this idea of Gwyneth Paltrow, and I think like almost egged Terry on and said, "Look, you got all these injuries, and it's because of her, and you need to go after her." This is the sense I'm getting, because I didn't, Whitney has stated that after the accident, he seemed fine. I mean, he remembered the brain words, right? Blue Snow 24. I don't know how he knows about the horse name. I mean, it's possible they were together for 2 hours. Maybe they were, just chatting, and she mentioned, that she rode horses and her horse's name, and the fact that he remembered that. And I'll try to find that one part where during the direct, Owens asks Whitney, was it Owens or James, who I like much, much better. Owens is so annoying. All the questions about his head, right? Like, did he show signs of nausea? Did he have a headache? Did he mention that he, wasn't feeling well? And it was no, 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 no. I mean, it was so detrimental to the plaintiffs, and I can see now, right, why plaintiff didn't call her, right? Isn't it so interesting that defense ended up calling her? So I think it was really, really interesting. I think Ramon pushed, yes. I think, yeah, I mean, it was 2 days afterwards, right? It wasn't, he didn't go to the ER that night. I mean, if it was really catastrophic the way they're stating it now, don't you think he would have gone to the ER that night if it was really that bad? So I don't know. I think it's not looking good for him. And I believe in Utah, you only have to convince like 3/4 of the jury. You don't have to. It's not like a criminal trial where you have to convince 100% of the jury. So Lex, what happened was, it happened in 2016 and the lawsuit was filed in 2019. I believe there's a 3-year statute of limitations, and he filed it right before it turned 3 years. That's why you have the 2019 date in your head. Okay, so let's watch a little more, although I really don't like him.
This is the week after the crash.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and except for the irrelevant stuff at the end on page 9, that's all I have. Who is Terry T in Exhibit 44? Plaintiff's exhibit. Terry T is mentioned. Do you remember?
I'm not sure who very.
I'm gonna fast forward a little bit.
So, Mr. Ramon, this comment I'm pointing to you,
I like this so much more.
pointing you to on page 6 says it's under Very T. Yes, Kurt, you organized the perfect day for skiing. Thank you. That's true, Scott. I still have my wheels. It was nice to get to know you a bit today. Do you know whether that was written on the day of the accident?
I'm not sure who was it on.
Would it surprise you that Mr. Sanderson was writing articulate notes like this after being knocked out and unconscious for 2 minutes?
It doesn't sound that articulate to me, but
Okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
Mr. Bueller?
So the lawsuit against the ski resort was dismissed, and the instructor, because they signed a liability waiver. I did do a video on a skiing liability waiver like a couple weeks back, not knowing this trial is coming down the pipeline. It was really kind of freaky because I covered Canadian skiing and US ski liability waivers. So go find that video if that's interesting to you, and why sometimes liability waivers are not enforceable. Most of the time they are, though, much more in Canada than in the US. Sorry, let me fast forward here. I don't know what's happening here. I didn't watch
Greg,
this.
can you look
Well,
at?
you know what? Let's.
They
Why don't we
were
just go
4
to
by 8.
then, because I think.
Have you ever
we're all here
skied with
for
the
it.
ski? About
Fully dressed, I was
about
fully dressed. I was or undressed, probably 63, 62 pounds, 163, 162.
okay, all right. So the jury's heard about meetup groups. What is a meetup group?
A meetup group was just a lifesaver for me, being new to this area. Hard to accumulate friends. And so when a fellow that I was on a hike with, a new fellow, said, "Have you heard of meetup?" And I hadn't. So he says, "Look it up and sign up." And I did. And it was a wonderful organization of groups of people where you had a shared interest, whether it was dancing or concerts or skiing. And so I signed up and joined some groups, and it was really a life changer.
Okay, so my understanding is the day of this ski collision, you were with kind of a group of people in the meetup group. Is that fair?
That's right.
All right. Did the group have a plan? I mean, were you the organizer of that meetup group that day?
No, I was not. I'd asked Kurt to take that over because I planned on being gone that day, and Kirk organized that.
Okay. It sounds like obviously you weren't gone that day. You ended up being able to make it.
I came back a little early from wherever I was and just said, "Oh, I'm going to go ski today." And I happened to see on the list that day also was a lady that I had met when I first moved here, and she happened to be a ski instructor at Canyons, but she had been at Deer Valley as well. And so I called and said, "Debbie, I'm going to go. I'll pick you up." So I picked her up at Kimball Junction on the way and went there with her and dropped her off the skis. And
I agree.
we met the group, and I asked Kirk if it'd be okay if she let our group out because she's very familiar with Deer Valley. And so she said yes and gave us the rules of the road. Would you like to hear that?
So the meetup group, you guys kind of ski all together-ish?
Well, and this skiing meetup group is unusual. It's like herding cats. You've got those that just want to go, and they kind of know who one another is. And so they go ahead and group up. And sometimes I wind up skiing with the beginners and getting them started and making them comfortable. And so they don't stay together well. We meet, usually we'll say, "Let's meet at Alf's at 1:30. And so that's what we do.
Okay, so you mentioned we set forth the rules of the road for that day. What were the rules of the road that day?
Well, the only rules of the road, we are pretty familiar with the rules of the road, so we don't go over that at the time. But Debbie just said, "We're going to start down Bandana because that's how we'll get to the blacks who are really good skiing." So our group knew that's where we're headed. And she said, "Whatever you do on Bandana, do not go down the middle of the run.
Why
It's
not?
packed and crowded with people." She said, "Go down the edges." She said, "It'll be clear." And so when I came over the edge of the hill, there were heads bobbing in the middle. It was just compacted with little heads and big tall heads. And I just diagonaled. I went straight over to the right edge of that run.
And is that where you stayed prior to the collision?
I did. I stayed there the whole time because it was wide open.
So you were over to the right side to avoid the people. Did it have anything to do with your vision? There's been a lot of discussion about your right eye problem.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But skiing on the right side of the run, did that have anything to do with your right eye?
Yeah, maybe that's one of the things. Yes.
Okay. We'll talk about your vision in just a couple of minutes, but I
Sure.
want to focus on the collision right now. Craig Ramon, he just testified.
Oh, yes.
You saw him. He also testified last week. How well did you know Craig at the time back February 2016?
He was one
The
of
level of
maybe
detail
an
is
average of 15
really
people, 10 or 15
a little
people would
crazy.
come. So I shared his company during those times. And I knew him only as being an amazing skier, strong skier, and knew that. And I appreciated the fact he tended to like to follow the group
Thanks, Gail, for joining.
and be behind as the protector because he brought a lady that was a person I knew that was his neighbor. So he would bring her up and ski behind her as a protector. So good guy.
Did you guys hang out a lot
Ladies.
before
You
this
know,
collision?
of course, at lunch, we spent time together. And there may be a couple of other occasions where we met with him, but usually there was somebody else there along with us.
Okay.
So I don't remember being exclusive with him.
All right. So, Terry, take the jury through what happened in this ski collision. Take it from, say, getting off of the lift.
Yes, happy to do that. It was really a very nice day for skiing, and I was really looking forward to it. And of course, Deer Valley has amazing groomed runs. Found that out right away. And so I'm starting from when I get off.
When you got off of the ski lift.
Gotcha. So I was on a chair with probably 4 people. I think Joanne, Debbie, Craig, and there could have been another person besides myself. And we had already met and discussed going down the right side of that run, or going down the sides. And so I came over the top of the hill and saw that and headed for the right side, and I'll pick it up there. And everyone just kind of dispersed, some more to the right, more to the left.
I know, but if
And
there was
I
a
remember
GoPro, then
looking and
we
seeing
wouldn't
no
be
one.
having all this fun
And
with the trial, right?
Generally, beginner runs, people are afraid of the off-piste, of the off-groomers. And so they stay away from that area where the snow is piled up. And off-piste can be a rough ride. If you have to divert and run out in there, some skiers can't make it through there easy. It's a lot of bumps. So I went right down the run and started just making nice soft turns and staying within that boundary. It could have been as much as 5 yards wide, but it might have been more like 5 or 6 feet. Can't imagine and can't remember. Lots of room. And so I'm just skiing easy and paying attention, and all of a sudden in front of me is 2 big signs. I've never seen that big of slow down signs. It seemed like they were 4x8, like a 4x8 sheet of plywood.
So I just want to stop really quickly and just confirm what everybody is saying, which is he is so incredibly articulate, right? I mean, from what all of his experts were saying was, how, he has this severe brain injury. He will never be the same again. And I mean, I feel like he is as articulate as some attorneys that I negotiate against. I mean, his recall is really crazy. I mean, I almost feel like he recalls a little too well. I mean, someone earlier just said that when they had an accident, they didn't remember anything. And so their friends or people who were there had to tell them what happened. I actually think that probably would have worked out a lot better for him was if he just said, I don't remember, right? Don't you feel like that would have been a better story, right? I mean, I don't want him to lie. I just feel like if he really had the kind of catastrophic injury that he's stating with his brain, right, then he should not have been able to recall. And his memory seems to be totally fine now, right? They said that he's regressed and that his memory and his brain has deteriorated over the last 7 years. I just think it's really kind of suspicious. I wanted to pull Mariko's comment about Natasha Richardson, which was so sad. I mean, I've done several films with Liam Neeson. He's like the sweetest man ever. And remember what happened with her was she fell, and I can't remember where she was, but I think she had asked for an imaging and they didn't give her one. And I think she died that night, which was so incredibly heartbreaking because, they have, I think, 2 young kids at the time. I mean, it's just really, really sad. I mean, I think part of the reason why Liam Neeson works so much, I feel like he does 2 or 3 films a year, is because this is a guess on my part, but like he's trying to take care of his kids, but also he's just been heartbroken, over losing his wife. So it is very, very sad. And I was really ready to, feel sorry for him and to see him as somebody who was not able to really talk or articulate his story. And he does not seem to be having that issue at all. So, let's watch a little more.
Size high with great big letters, slow down. I went, whoa. And I'm looking around and the crowd's about the same as me and speed wise. And so
Did you pay attention to the sign?
I did. And I backed off of whatever I was doing.
I agree.
And then another big sign, like 10 feet away, the same 4x8 sheet up there, big letters. Oh, they're serious. Must be lots of merging trails down here. So I just backed off. And again, the skiers were on my left. We're all about the same speed. And I could see down where the edge of the run went, it curved around, a tree line came out a little bit, and the run curled around. And I could see about half of I don't know if it's the Montage or the Empire, could about half of that beautiful building. And it was wide open. There was nothing in front of me. And so I came around that corner, and it takes my breath away to think this is hard because I don't like going through this scene. I just remember everything was great, and then I heard something I've never heard at a ski resort, and that was a blood-curdling scream. Just, I can't do it. It was, ah, and then boom. And it was like somebody was out of control and going to hit a tree and was going to die. And that's what I had until I was hit.
That's what was going on in your mind.
Overruled?
That's what's going on in your mind when you hear that scream.
That was instantaneous. Oh my gosh, somebody's out of control. And they're really seriously out of control. Not time for a hockey stop. I didn't go think about that, but most people could avoid that, I think. Good skiers.
Okay. And I'll move on.
Okay.
So you
All right, I need overruled.
Owens is so annoying. I'm sorry. And you see Gwyneth, she's just shaking her head. I mean, I think not against Owen, but against Terry Sanderson's story of what's happening right now, because this is the moment of the collision, right, between them.
Overruled.
Thank you. So you hear this scream.
Yes.
What happens next?
I got hit in my back so hard, and I'm right at my shoulder blades, and it felt like, and was perfectly centered, and the fists and the poles were right there at the bottom of my shoulder blades. Serious smack. Never been hit that hard, and I'm flying. I'm absolutely flying.
Now, you're not airborne.
Well, all I saw was a whole lot of snow, and I didn't see the sky, but I was.
Okay, I have to ask you guys' opinion on this, because I'm not a skier. I don't know how to ski. It's not that interesting to me. But from what everyone has told about that day, this is not a fast run. It's a slow run. And I think Gwyneth Paltrow, I don't think she ever says what her weight is. Maybe I missed that, but she's very slight, right? And I don't know, like, for her to hit him, I mean, that detail with, getting hit with the hands and the poles right at his back is very specific. And for him to go flying, I mean, that just seems like it would have, I don't know, like, yeah, and yes, I mean, Tiff, you make a good point. Like, if he heard the scream, like, don't you think he says he's been skiing for 37 years? Wouldn't he have maybe like turned his head or something? I think yes. I mean, I think, Nicole, you're right. I think there is definitely exaggeration happening on both parts. You're right. Connect the dots. I think it's like ski poles into his back. Like, how would he know? I mean, there's a lot of cushioning, I think, through ski jackets, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't ski, so I just don't know. So yes, I was thinking about this when he said it today, right? Like, if she's taller than him, and I think she's quite tall. I think she might be like 5'10", 5'11". I mean, she's very tall. Well, but she would have been uphill. What? But uphill would put her even higher. So wouldn't you need someone slower? I mean, low. I mean, shorter than him to hit him in the back. I don't know. It just sounds suspicious. And yes, like flying just seems a little bit exaggerated, to be honest.
Flying in that sense. I had no control. And I remember this thinking, okay, you really got to hang on. And then I thought about the crowd on the left, and I thought, I don't know who's wanted over there, and I do not want to get them mixed up in here. And I've heard, that maybe that's not.
By the way, everything that he's describing right now would have happened in like 1 second, right? There's all this stuff happening. Like I'm thinking about all the people to the right, and I shift myself, and it was amazing what was happening in this 1 second. It just I don't know that I would have been able to do all that after I was knocked, forward and and by the way, to remember this 7 years later, that's I don't know. Yes, I grew up in LA. I'd rather go to the beach than go skiing.
Decided about how my ribs really got hurt. I absolutely lurched with what little I could off of my skis a little bit more to the right to make sure nobody over here got involved on my left side. And then it was like the ground's coming up, nobody in front of me, just me going to the ground, and you're falling far further than 90 degrees like you'd fall on the floor. You got that extra. And so it's quite a ways to hit the ground. And I just said, okay, you got to protect your face, and your head. And that's the last thing I remember. It didn't happen. I did glance over and saw just out of the corner of my eye, I could see, not glance over, but I could see somebody going by, and I'm going, okay, they're safe. Last thing I remember, everything's black.
Did the person who struck you land on top of you?
Yes.
I wouldn't know that. I absolutely would not know that. I was just surprised. I had no upper body strength enough to be able to catch myself. I had no idea.
Do you remember hitting your head on the ground?
No, that part, no, that's all gone. I just remember my arms collapsing, and that's the last thing I remember.
What's the next thing you remember?
I'm getting an adrenaline rush here, I guess, living this again, just being here and present too.
And let me just stop you really quick. You said you're getting an adrenaline rush. Is this something that you enjoy?
Adrenaline rush? Not this
No.
time.
Yeah.
Not now.
Okay. That right there was so weird, right? For him to say, oh, it almost felt like he was enjoying it. Like when I first watched this earlier today, didn't you get that sense like he was really enjoying this? And on Friday, when he was watching her testimony, which was, by the way, the only time he came into court the entire week, when Gwyneth Paltrow sat there for the whole week and the jury was there for him the entire week. So for him to say like, oh, I'm getting adrenaline rush, I felt like that was really, really weird. And I think humans tend to be very honest. So you just have to listen to them and observe them. I think humans tend to be very truthful about who they are if you're listening carefully. And I think a lot of the things that he says in his testimony are weird. And so I think this is where you see his attorney like jumping in and say, wait, like she's trying to like remedy that and saying, wait, what do you mean? Are you enjoying this? Like she wanted to clarify that he wasn't enjoying this, but I don't know. I'm not buying it.
All right. So what's the first thing that you remember? Or the next thing that you remember after you're
Yes.
on the ground?
The first remember is everything is still black, like I'm unconscious, but it's like my subconscious is going into protection mode. Like, you better pay attention here and listen to what's being said to you. And all I could recognize was that someone was really angry at me. And it was a man, and it didn't come out clear in the beginning. I couldn't really hear what he was saying, but I just knew he was mad, and he was right above me, right close to me. And I'm feeling a little afraid, And I tried to move, and I could not move a limb. I couldn't move my head. I couldn't move my body. Nothing was responding. Just this message I was getting. And the next thing, it became a little more clear. And I heard him say, do you realize that you weren't skiing under the rules? You hit somebody. You hurt somebody. And just insistent that I was the bad guy. And that's why I said, this has got to be a husband or boyfriend that's really mad at me. And I sound like a big...
Did you know who he was?
I had no idea. No idea. It was just a very angry person trying to bully me into believing something that I didn't think could happen, which I heard a woman's voice, right? Again, couldn't move. And about the third time he went through that, and it's getting louder, and I started to understand what he was saying, and he was really insistent that I was doing something wrong and hit somebody. And I remember in desperation, because I couldn't move anything, I couldn't fight. I couldn't fight. Who's going to try? And I tried moving something, and I could move my skis a little bit. I could just feel just below my knee. I could just slide my skis a little bit. And that's an important point. My skis are still on. They're still on. And I'm thinking, I got to placate this guy. He's really mad. If he decided he wanted to jump on me right now, he could finish me off. I remember saying, I'm sorry.
Okay, now you're
Twice.
You're whispering.
I know I am,
but
because
maybe-
that's what I heard. Nothing was coming out.
Okay, by the way, I really dislike this part of him whispering. It's almost like he's being so dramatic about it. I mean, he could have just said, I was really scared, so I ended up whispering something. I mean, it's really, really strange. And yes, Miku, I agree with you. I mean, it's so inconsistent because he's saying that he was unconscious. I think there are different testimonies, and either at the deposition or with his experts and doctors, where he has said that he was unconscious for 2 minutes. Other times there have been 5 minutes. If he was really out, and I will tell you, as an attorney who has represented companies, I bet you that these ski instructors have it pounded into them, drilled into their brains, that if anyone is out unconscious, you immediately have to call for an ambulance, right? We do not take, I'm so used to representing companies, right? You would tell the employees, you have to call for an ambulance right away, especially after, Natasha Richardson dying at a skiing accident. People are so careful about head injuries now that I don't believe this part. I don't believe that. Maybe, okay, common sense, maybe he said something like, hey, why did you do that? Because if it's according to Gwyneth Paltrow's story that he ran into her, I think, Christensen would be saying, why did you do that? What were you doing? Why weren't you following the rules? I don't think that if he was unconscious, that Christensen would have kept screaming at him. It just these things don't add up to me, right? The whispering part really annoyed me. It's just he's acting or being so dramatic.
My lips were moving, my tongue was moving. There was nothing coming out of my mouth, and my heart rate went up again. Okay.
It looked like what you were mouthing was,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. And I was just going, I can't believe it. I thought, try again. I'm sorry. Nothing was coming out. And to me, I heard nothing.
When you kind of mumbled, whispered, whatever you want to call it, I'm sorry, was that you apologizing for causing the accident?
No, absolutely not. I was trying to placate this man in the only defensive manner that I could.
Okay. You've talked about the man who was yelling at you. Ms. Paltrow last week admitted that she was kind of cussing you out as well. Do you remember any conversation that you had or anything that she said to you?
Absolutely not. There was one voice that my brain was focused on. Thank God, I guess. And that was self-protection, I guess. I only heard a male voice, a mad, angry male voice. I heard nothing.
I wonder why he says thank God, and he's so insistent on saying that he didn't hear her. I almost feel like maybe that's him, trying to explain away the, oh, I wasn't focused on the Gwyneth Paltrow, suing her point of view, but he goes home that night and says to his daughters that he's famous, right? So these things, like, they just kind of don't add up for me. And I wanted to believe him because, I always want to give plaintiffs the benefit of the doubt, right? We always want everybody to have their day in court. As an attorney, that's really important to me, that everybody gets a fair day in court, because that's what's so amazing about living in America and having a court system the way we do, because not everybody around the world has that. And so we're very lucky in that way.
Maybe that happened before I came to that point in consciousness.
Were you still on the ground at this time?
Still on the ground, absolutely, face down on the ground.
How did you end up getting up?
Well, that's a story too, but basically, I heard
Tell us.
Craig saying, "Terry, are you okay?"
Now, this is Craig Ramone.
Well, at that point, I didn't identify his voice. I just, things were a little strange yet. And I heard, "Terry, are you okay?" And about the third time it hit me, somebody is here to help me. I didn't, at that point, except an angry man was there. And I said, "Oh my gosh." And I went through and I looked up and I could see Craig standing there above me, 8 or 10 feet. And on his immediate left, my right, was a man in an all green outfit and with a helmet on and ski goggles and, looked good. And I thought, oh, he's here to help me, right? He looks like he's from Deer Valley. And so I was going through the things, answering his question about, that were my thoughts. Now back to my injuries. Craig is saying, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Oh, my ribs are so sore. There's just this really deep throbbing purple pain here." And then I said, "My vision is swimming with sparks." And they were unusual sparks. I'm going, "Is that my retina? Is that my eyes?" And it wasn't a retinal detachment, a retinal hole.
This part gets really interesting when he starts talking about how he sees his brain connecting. I mean, it's very, very strange. I didn't quite know what was happening when he was talking about his brain and his subconscious.
Or anything. And I'm going, "That's my brain." I'm thinking, those sparks are my brain.
And all this time, you're still on the ground.
I'm actually, yeah, the next point is that after I tell him about my,
Right? Like, all of this has happened. Like, he's been talking for like 10 minutes now. I feel like this was a few seconds, right? Like, the level of detail is astonishing.
ears going, my ears are buzzing. Oh, and my brain is like it's on Novocaine. And
Your brain
and
is on
then I
Novocaine.
realized, oh, I'm not seeing, you know what, I missed a spot. And that's where I looked up and couldn't see them and got frightened about that. And I realized, going, oh my, what's going on? And then I went like this and go, oh, happy I could see. So I missed that part. That happened before I started telling him what all is wrong with me, answering his question. And then Craig said to me, as I remember, of course, my brains are a little bit stretched out of place. And I remember him saying, "Do you know who you are?" And what I thought I said was, "Oh my gosh, I can feel this pathway in my brain. It's going around and trying to figure out who I am. And yes, I know I'm Terry." And
What?
Then
What
he said,
does that mean?
"Do you know where you are?" And I said, I know I'm skiing, but I don't know where I am. And that's when the man in green took off. I was kind of noticing that he really wasn't interested in what I had to say. He wasn't asking questions. He was standing there rather stoically.
Firefly. He becomes a
not
different
moving,
person
goggles
on
on,
cross.
just resting on his poles and his skis, and was sort of disinterested. But when he skied off, my heart sank because I really thought he was the one person that was there to help me. And I'm laying on the ground
Craig
with
there?
my head downhill, and I couldn't see where he went. So I was really.
Terry, how'd you get up?
The question is how I got up, and that might have been the question in the beginning. But
That's right. How did you get up?
you know,
Okay, so they're trying to play up this, oh, like, Terry, your brain has been damaged, so every time I ask you something, you forget what was the original question I asked you. By the way, if you guys attend my lives long enough, you'll see that I try to talk about something and I'll go off on a tangent and I will forget. This is pretty human behavior, right? You've seen a lot of witnesses forget what question was asked of them. I don't know that this specific example, that they're trying to use is that helpful to him. It's not that persuasive to me, by the way. You let me know if it feels persuasive to you.
I realized that I was getting cold, and snow was packed in around me. I was starting to get a little shivery, maybe from a little shockish, maybe. And I started, I got to go. I got to get my skis down.
I had that same question.
And I started sliding my skis around and my legs around. I think Craig must have been shell shocked about this guy leaving too. I don't know but what he thought, but I remember getting my skis around, and it's so painful every time you have to contract your.
Terry.
Thank you.
How did you get up?
Thank you. That is one of my habits. I just focus.
Yes, I have brain
After
damage.
I got halfway around, a man showed up in front of me, and I thought he came from the right. And I don't remember if he said
Thank
one
you for
word to
being
me.
here, Ian.
He
You're
just
so
reached
sweet.
down
I
and
adore you.
grabbed me and jerked me up on my feet, which I was not ready to be up on my feet. My head's swimming. I'm in pain, worried about falling down again and breaking a rib, puncturing a lung. He gets me up, and I'm on the edge of the run, so it's bumpy. It's hard to get my skis under me, and I'm stomping down the snow and trying to get them in a spot. Got my poles wedged in, and I think I've got it in stability, and he's gone. And this time, I could see him. I could watch him go all the way down the hill. And I'm up. I'm standing up. But am I feeling safe? No. People are going by, And I'm thinking, man, I do not want to get hit again.
My understanding is that you and Craig tried to ski down a little ways, but then didn't quite make it too far. Is that accurate?
Yeah, he said, you think you can ski? And I'm thinking, the option is getting left up here, I will try anything. I got to get off here. So yes, he said, follow me. And I did. And I don't know how I was skiing. I don't think I was edging. I think I was probably snow plowing. And he finally turned around and said, Terry, stop. You've forgotten how to ski. And of course, it was just, we were trapped. And he said, I got to find help.
Here, stay.
Eventually,
like praying
Craig
for this
got
to be
help,
over.
yes.
Yeah, he said, I got to find help. And so he disappeared, and I just put my head down and prayed that I wouldn't get smacked into again. I felt pretty vulnerable. And he disappeared.
What happened when help arrived?
Whitney showed
That's
up,
good,
and I
'cause
was so
have no
grateful
idea
to see
how to
someone.
do anything on my lives yet.
And
Now, is that Whitney Smith?
Yes, that's her name. Mm-hmm.
And the jury has seen pictures, and we're going to put another picture up in just a couple minutes. Is she the one in a red jacket that there's a picture of in this case? Do you know?
Yes, as a matter of yes, that's her. Mm-hmm.
All right. So did she take you down on the toboggan, or how did you get down?
She did. She said, "Are you okay?" kind of thing. And I don't know, not so good. I don't remember the conversation. It was a little easy stuff, and so got in, and I remember
Wait, you remember the brain words, right? And the name of her horse, but you don't remember what you guys talked about when the EMT arrived? Come on, Terry.
Whitney saying to me, now you got to remember these things because I'm going to ask you again later. And she told me that she was from Michigan, moved 5 years before, and had started on the ski patrol here 5 years before. She loved her job. Her name was Whitney, and that she had a horse named Titan that she wore in the years off. So she told me to remember those things. I'm going, this is a brain test. She's wanting to check if my brain's okay. And from that point on, I quit worrying about myself. I quit worrying about my injuries. It was just like, I'm going to remember this. I do not want to have any brain injuries. And I locked onto that and nothing else. And later on, she did ask me, and I could repeat it back to her.
By the way, that's not how it works, right? It's not like you can get these brain tests, and it's amazing that he knew what was happening. People who have severe traumatic brain injury can try as hard as they can, but they're not going to remember these words. The fact that he remembers the words is just an indication that he didn't really have the kind of severe brain injury that they're now stating that he has, right? And I do think that really severe brain injury that they're claiming would have happened immediately. I don't think he would have been able to have a 2-hour conversation with her. She is an EMT. She's supposed to be, I mean, she says she checked his pupils. They talked. He never once stated that he had a headache or that he felt dizzy or nauseous or that he just didn't feel well, right? I've, been knocked out before, been in a bad car accident, and afterwards, like, I don't feel good, and so I think, and never once has he said to Whitney, right, that I don't feel good. So it's just, it's definitely strange.
Exactly as she told me. And she won the women's downhill in the ski patrol women's competition.
Sounds like you still remember some of these details.
I was so determined to hang on to those facts.
I think she's trying to be like, don't remember so much, Terry. Why are you remembering so much?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Once you got down, what type of medical attention did you receive? Still at the ski resort.
Yeah. Whitney is not a paramedic. She's not an EMT.
I think that's incorrect. I think when she testified today, she stated that she was an EMT. So unless she got her certification or license after the fact, but I believe she said she was an EMT.
Didn't really expect her to have advanced knowledge about neurological testing and pupil testing and cranial nerve testing. She did a great job of doing exactly what she's supposed to do, just to be at that triage level to decide what kind of care I needed.
Okay, so what type of care did you get? What type of medical treatment did you get you got down to the bottom?
No medical treatment. Okay. Am I missing something?
Did you get checked out at the Instacare or anybody?
After
Yes.
We left there. Yes. I asked Debbie, I said, where can I go and get?
Him saying, did I miss something? It just really indicates to me that he's been very, very heavily coached and potentially memorized this testimony like to the word, because he's like, did I miss something? Because she clearly wanted him to say that he went to urgent care later that night.
Checked and see what they say. And she said, well, let's stop at the Instacare. I know it's on the way. So I'd never been there before, but that's where we stopped and went in there.
All right. So you got checked out. When did you learn that it was Gwyneth Paltrow that you were in the collision with?
That's true.
It was brought up, I think, the people that came in to the room to check on me that were part of my group, they check in and check out once, and which is what I tell them, go ski and go enjoy yourself. And so It
just
came up,
say
and it
EM.
probably was Craig. I
Sorry.
said, I heard him say it was Gwyneth Paltrow. And to me, it's like, I'm not into celebrity worship, so I didn't care at that point.
Did you think it was cool to collide with a celebrity?
Absolutely not. That is not who I am. No.
Really? That's why you wrote to your daughters that same night that I'm famous? It was interesting in his email. He didn't say, "Oh my God, I was severely injured. I can't even move right now or sit down because my ribs are broken." I'm not refuting that his ribs are broken. I think that is a fact. But I think he really focused on the I'm famous part more than anything else with his daughters. If my parents ever got hurt, they would call me up and say, "Oh my God, I'm so hurt. I can't do anything. You have to come, help me."
Ever write that? Ever tell anybody that?
I don't think it came out in those words, but I don't remember that. But I think I was trying to communicate to my kids, and the reason was because I got calls from friends that knew my kids that heard I got crushed
Exactly,
on the ski
Warren.
resort, and so I thought I gotta let my kids know I'm okay. That was my main point. I don't want them to worry about me. I'm okay. And so I started it out, and May said, "I'm famous" or something.
Okay, we're going to pull that up. Could you pull up
Thank you.
Exhibit 111, please?
Yes, he did have a press conference.
Yes, Defense Exhibit 111. We're going to call it the I'm famous email.
It's pretty infamous now. Thank you, Cerise. Now, let me see if I can fast forward a little bit because I do want to get to the cross.
I was lost.
Now, just to clarify, this is since the ski crash, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh,
And my
yeah.
instincts for always knowing where north is, and it's really been good having grown up in the mountains. It just was instinctual. At night, I had no instincts anymore anyway. And so I headed just instinctually where I thought I was supposed to be and wound up north or south or somewhere else. And that happened a second time.
Had
And-
that ever happened to you before this ski collision?
I've never been so needing maps.
Never been so reliable.
So,
Slip of the tongue.
I'm pretty sure I've lost visual memory because it doesn't, knowing those turns and the houses where you turn, the streets you turn at,
Or to the cross.
that
This
feels
is
like,
him
and I know a
trying
little
to
bit
show
about
that,
that. That
he
feels
don't
like
change.
a deficit I have. That doesn't, I don't retain that anymore. I can be
Here's
there a dozen times and I still
favorite
have to use
opinion.
maps to make sure I get there. Really awesome.
Minutes, then 10 minutes. You did that, right?
Rewind a little bit. Sorry.
Have it on record. No, I don't deny it. I don't remember it. But
Well,
I don't
let's go to
deny it.
page 15. Can you bring that up? Move to publish the deposition, which
Your Honor, he said he doesn't deny it, so why are we publishing?
because he earlier denied it.
I'll overrule the objection and permit that portion of the deposition to be published.
May
I
I
agree.
ask
He
when
is
this
cute.
happened?
And
Sure.
he's just
Like
much
1 hour
less
ago,
annoying.
2 hours ago, you told this jury, I've never thought it was cool that I had a collision with a celebrity. Do you recall that?
Yes, I guess I did say that. Absolutely.
And that's not a true statement, is it? You have said this in your deposition, true?
Honestly, I don't ever remember saying it.
Bring it up
But-
whenever you
but
can.
I don't doubt you. I misspeak a lot.
Okay, this is
Oh,
page
thanks so much,
15,
Firefly.
line
Means
5
so much to me.
through 8. So the words "I'm famous," this is my question, seem to say, I think it's cool that I had a collision with a celebrity. Was that your thinking at the time? And your answer was yes, I guess, yes. Now let's go to your weight. You testified today that you were 163 and 5'5", true?
Yes, I did.
And do you agree that at your deposition, you told me you were 175 to 180 and 5'8"? Yes or no? Yes or no?
A qualified yes.
No, I don't want to qualify.
I can't
Did you
answer
tell
this.
me that?
It's gotta
Like
be
I
mine.
said, how much do you weigh? And you said 175/80. How much did you weigh? And then you said 5'8". How high are you? How tall are you? 3 inches different, right?
I just found that out. I didn't realize. I've had
Sir,
people telling me that.
You
honestly.
told this jury that at the time of the accident, you were 163 and 5'5". Did you not, like 2 hours ago?
I did, yes. Yes.
But you told me in your deposition years ago that you were 170 to 180 and 5'8". True?
How many years ago did we do this?
3 years ago.
I've lost a lot of weight. I'm down to my usual weight.
You know we're interested not now in your weight today. We're interested in your weight on the day.
Thank you. I knew where that was
Do you
going.
agree you were 5'8"?
Yes.
Have you shrunk 3 inches?
I couldn't believe it either. I wanted to argue because I think I'm 5'8" yet.
You do have degenerative back disease, and those discs are getting squeezed. Is that why?
I have to.
So Owens is trying to establish some pre-existing conditions, but the 3-inch thing was a little strange to me. I mean, look, I think people, as we age, we do shrink a little bit, but I think it's like half an inch. I don't think it's 3 inches. So something strange is going on here about his height.
To say yes, I've always been 5'8.5", and I knew I shrunk a half an inch, but wow.
Right. Half an inch.
Mr. Sanderson, we're trying in council, let's not speak on top of one another so
Thank you.
that we have a clear, clean record.
You're right. Yes, Your Honor.
When we talked about you being unconscious, and do you agree that someone who's unconscious doesn't have a stopwatch to figure out how long they were actually unconscious?
I agree. That's true.
Everything you've learned was from Craig after
Maybe in
the collision.
No.
Yeah, that's over vague, and that's I'll withdraw it because I agree that's
Not
over
everything.
broad.
It's not everything. Sorry.
Right.
So it's kind of clear that Owens, okay, if any of you watched the opening statements, you'll know that these lawyers are civil attorneys, right? Civil attorneys rarely ever go to court because cases settle about 95% of the time. I've been involved with so many more settlements, right, than things going to trial. And what he's doing here, a lot of like I'll withdraw, Your Honor, and I'll rephrase myself. This is what you do in depositions. In depositions, you are less formal and you basically kind of change your questions. And that's not how it's usually done in court, to be honest.
As far as level of length of unconsciousness, do you agree that you weren't stopwatching yourself?
I have no idea.
Yeah. And yet you did tell people it varied over time. First a few seconds, then 5 minutes, then 10 minutes. You did that, right?
Maybe.
Do you disagree?
Yes, it did vary.
And why did you do that? Why would you say, I don't know, then it's a few seconds, then it's 5 minutes, and then you told your psychiatrist at the VA it was up to 10 minutes long? Why did you change?
I had no idea, and I was searching. I really had no idea, and I was trying to answer. I sometimes make that mistake of guessing, but I really didn't know.
And it was to try to get the attention of the doctor. Do you remember telling me that?
I don't. I don't know how to.
Let's find it.
Clowns terrify me.
What's the
yeah.
date?
Let's go to page 95.
Which deposition, 1, 2, or 3?
1. They're all cumulative, so the page will tell you that. Page 95, starting at line 7. When you first tell your healthcare providers a few seconds, and then later it turned into 5 minutes, and then later it turned into 10 minutes, do you know that you gave varying answers to people? And then whenever you can pull it up, page 95.
Yes.
The witness says, And then can we go to the middle paragraph? Yes, I do. And that was referencing the fact I personally did not know. I was not a witness to how long I was unconscious. And so somebody told me it was 2 seconds, and somebody said it was 10 seconds, 10 minutes. And so I didn't know. It was hard for me to say. And then next paragraph, it depends on my visit. If I want to make a deal out of it, and that was the reason for my visit, then I might say for 10 minutes. I might pick the worst. That's kind of how we are. We go to the doctor's attention. We go to get the doctor's attention about a specific thing. And it wasn't at that point how long I was unconscious was not a point of relevance for me. That's your testimony, correct?
I'm confused
Wow.
by those statements. So,
Yes or no?
yes, it is.
Wow. So he basically stated that he will lie, right? To get the doctor's attention. He'll change his story. It's how we are. That's very, very interesting that he said that. I saw somebody's comment go by. I think it was Verity. You asked about why did Gwyneth not hire some flashy attorneys? I've had the same question in my mind. I think at first I really thought these were insurance companies' attorneys because she probably has homeowners insurance that would probably have it, or she might have trip insurance that would cover a ski accident. When I do insurance for my film productions, usually I know it's not the same thing, but it's the only thing I can go off of. It's like 1 million, 3 million for the occurrences. And so usually they will cover up to that. But in order to get the insurance company to pay for the settlement, you have to go with the attorneys that they assign. So I really believed that these were hired by the insurance company, because I was wondering why her LA attorneys didn't come in, because these actors, they have their talent attorney that does their film and TV and everything else. They have their litigators, they have a bunch of other attorneys. And so I was interested, I was curious why her LA attorneys didn't come with her, because I would have expected them to, but it's just, I don't know. But the other day when she was saying about asking for the dollar, and that woman, I don't know what her name is. She's the Camille Vasquez wannabe, but more Elaine, I think. She was like, "Oh, but you are asking for more than $1, all right? Aren't you asking for attorney's fees?" And then Gwyneth said, "Yes, I am asking for attorney's fees to pay them," which is interesting. That seemed to indicate to me that maybe she did hire these attorneys. But here's the thing. I think James is excellent. I think maybe Owen came highly recommended and was told that he was effective. I do think he is alienating everybody. So I really hope and wish like James does more of the crosses and the directs, but I thought that pulling of the depot was really excellent. See, it just proves my point, right? I mean, Owen is very annoying, but he is an excellent attorney. So maybe this is why Gwyneth Paltrow hired him, because that was really damaging to Terry Sanderson.
By the way, when we took your deposition, there's a lot of formality to it. Too, you're placed under oath, just like the one you were put on today.
Yeah.
And your counsel's present, and you've been able
Thanks,
to, you were
Deanna.
able to talk to
Thank
them
you.
before. Yes?
For joining.
And I think I had,
Yes.
11 hours or so of deposition.
I can't really hear you, sir, but my question is, you had your advice of your counsel there.
Yes.
And I asked at the beginning of the deposition, is there any reason why you can't give me your best testimony today? And you said no, correct?
Yes.
And I even told you, I think, that if you testify differently at your deposition, then you would in front of this jury, I would call it to their attention. Do you recall this?
Yes,
And you took an oath, and you then had the opportunity to make any changes to your deposition transcript. Is that true?
yes.
And did you?
No, I don't remember making any changes. I think I made 2 with you. I said 2 corrections and that I remembered.
Okay. You
And-
didn't.
and
You,
you took
didn't
them.
make some, and counsel told you let's not submit those.
I haven't looked at these depositions at all. Not at all.
Do you dispute that? Well, I heard you call Eric Christensen, a Deer Valley instructor for 40 years, a bully. Did you say that?
I did say that, yes,
And that he was yelling at your face.
yes. I figured out. I didn't actually know that until,
And we'll meet him at 1:00. Deer Valley's known, or at least puts itself out there, doesn't it, as like the most customer friendly they could possibly be. Do you agree?
I agree.
Were your skis on or off at the end of the collision? Do you know?
Absolutely, they were on,
Okay. So
Absolutely.
you do remember some things after.
yes.
A lot of things with
And
Whitney.
Craig, by the way, you said you weren't here for your daughters, but you haven't been here for several statements, right?
Several, yes.
It was more than just like, I don't want to make my daughters uncomfortable. You
Very
haven't been here
true.
for many.
I didn't.
Good job, Owens.
Yeah. And Sam Goldstein said part of the reason is you don't take criticism well. Do you agree with that statement?
I always want to be a better person, and I even tell my kids, if I'm doing something wrong, tell me. I want to be better.
All right. So do you agree or disagree with this statement? Mr. Sanderson does not take criticism well.
Hard for me to measure that. I've not been around other humans as much as I have been in the past, so it's hard for me to measure that. Honestly, I don't.
Do you agree that when Whitney came with the toboggan,
Mhm.
she asked you what happened, and you said, I don't know. Do you agree with that statement?
If that's on the record, I don't disagree with it. I don't remember that particular part of our interaction. I just remember she said something to me, and
It's the first question, right? Ski patroller comes up. By the way, you've hurt yourself before skiing, true?
never
But-
needing help, right?
Before this
Yeah.
incident, though, you injured your knee.
I had when I first learned to ski that first year.
All right.
Beaver. Mhm.
So you don't dispute that the first thing Whitney asked you is like, how are you? And what happened? Do you agree those are like the first 2 questions?
I have no recollection of those questions. I don't. I would think she would reach out to me, but I don't.
Did you ever complain to Deer Valley about Eric Christensen? Like I was treated like a bully?
I had a lot of time to think about it.
Yes or no?
I don't know if I did. I think when I contacted Deer Valley, I was just
So-
after I wanted to find out who hit me, and I wanted to copy the records, and I didn't bring it up.
Yeah. You never once wrote to Deer Valley like, hey, your
Thank you.
ski instructor is a total SOB to me. He treated me poorly.
That's correct. I didn't bring it up because I did not want to cause some anger from them. I wanted to copy and find out who hit me.
But 7 years later, you're here saying he was terrible to me, just terrible. Craig Ramon said words to the effect that Christensen said to Ramon, your buddy took out Gwyneth Paltrow. Did you hear those words?
I did.
You personally heard them with your, so now I want to be clear because I'm not trying to confuse you. Did you hear them when you were on the ski
No.
slope? Okay. And Ramon did not do anything to try to set the record straight at that point. Do you know anything about that?
About who hit me?
Correct.
When we got down into the
At that
medical
point
care.
was
Yeah.
my question. On the mountain.
On the mountain, but in the shed. I was
Okay. You said your skis were on after the collision. Do you recall your head being downhill or uphill?
absolutely downhill. I was going down and absolutely.
So several witnesses say the opposite, and you disagree?
I disagree absolutely because I couldn't get up.
And where was Gwyneth's head when she came to arrest? Head
I have-
down, head up?
I have no idea. As far as I know, she didn't exist.
Because you didn't see anything.
I was out. I had no idea. Everything else is what I heard.
It's strange, right? He's saying that for some reason he's very insistent on making sure that he never acknowledged that she was there, but yet he like sensed and he saw and he heard a bunch of other people, right? That he heard everything that Christensen was screaming at him. A lot of times his head was down in the snow. It feels very, very strange how he's kind of, I don't know. Maybe he's trying to prove his point that he's selective, that he didn't hear her because he was injured. I mean, I don't know. Because according to her, she was there for a little bit. I mean, she admitted screaming at him, so she was there for a little bit. Is he trying to, I don't know. Like I just had this thought, maybe during closing, they're going to say, oh, well, see, he was knocked out because he doesn't even remember Gwyneth Paltrow being there screaming at him. Maybe that's what they're going with. I think the closing is going to be very, very interesting. That's where all the attorneys tie everything together. If any of you watch the Alec Murdaugh trial, you know that that's when Creighton Water spent hours putting this thing together, right? And then Alec Murdaugh's attorneys just basically gave up, right? It really seemed like they gave up there. And it was really, really strange. Yeah, I'm just, let's watch a little more and then we can go on to Whitney's. I want to catch a little bit of Whitney's because I think she really damages Terry Sanderson's case.
Did you tell Eric Christensen, according to his report, that
I agree with the word perfect. No,
you had palpitations? Agreed?
had them most of my life.
Yeah. How many years?
40 years probably.
And what's the lay term for palpitation? Is it just
It's called
unusual beat?
It's just a little out of sync that happens when I'm really tired, or if I've been on the treadmill too long or running too long and hard, then it will get a little funny syncope. It's called PCVs.
So your beat's off. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but it's nothing.
Yeah.
I notice it doesn't change.
Okay. But you were on two different high blood pressure medications. Does that sound right?
Yes.
And that's because one wasn't adequate. You needed both.
Well,
Objection relevance.
We're going to I can explain if you want, Your Honor, that this event changed his
Later witnesses to which this forms part of their opinion?
Sure, his overall health, yes.
There's no claim that his heartbeat or anything was affected by this accident.
Your Honor, he says this has utterly changed his life.
Yeah, just a minute. Counsel, would you approach, please?
Okay, so Owens is trying to establish that he has had all these pre-existing medical conditions that have contributed to his general decline, right? So I think that's what he's trying to do there. So let's skip ahead to Whitney's testimony here.
Asking him if he had pain. I do recall he was talking about some right-sided rib pain, so we went through and made sure breathing and whatnot was okay. And then he said he was able to answer all my questions appropriately, but did seem a bit rattled.
Okay. Do you remember him complaining about anything related to his brain or his head?
I don't recall.
Did you observe him to have any cognitive disability or limitations?
Per my assessment, he was alert and oriented by 4, which is part of our assessment there, which means he's 4 out of 4.
Okay, and explain that to the jury, the 4x4 idea.
So it's to see if you're oriented to person, place, time, and event. So I'll ask, do they know who they are? Do they know what day it is? Event, do they know what happened?
She's
and then,
great. I like her. She's very neutral.
And I
like
usually
her.
give them sort of a general politics question, like who's the president? If they can answer that, then they're usually doing that.
Got it. So you're just trying to test that they're cognitively aware and able to speak to you, communicate with you.
Yes.
And you do that every time as a matter of course, just anytime you are on a scene and
You
assessing a person.
Yeah, you can typically just kind of throw those in for conversation and get a feel of how someone is cognitive.
So you feel confident that you did that.
I did do that.
Did you do anything to assess the rib pain at that point?
I don't recall specifically doing that. I can tell you how I would do that. So I can tell with confidence, if that's what I wrote in my report, that is what I did.
Okay. And speaking of the report, what's the reason that you actually wrote out a report in this case?
When we go on an incident with someone who has an injury, we just fill out paperwork for everyone's liability and future needs.
Okay. Just trying to get down what the facts that were reported to you and that you observed.
Sure.
Okay, so you assessed Mr. Sanderson on the hill,
Mhm.
and at that point, did he know who hit him?
No, he never said who hit him. He just was like, yes, I was in a collision.
Did he know what had happened?
He, aside from saying, I believe, according to my paperwork, he said he was hit from behind. So that was what he told me in a collision. But beyond that, he didn't have much in the way of specifics.
Okay. And then what about Mr. Ramon? Did he report to you any details about what he had seen?
He mentioned a couple times that the skier involved had been Miss Paltrow. But beyond that, there were no specifics of how it happened.
And do you know how he knew it was Miss Paltrow?
I do not. I hazarded a guess that he had seen, but I don't know.
They were very focused on the fact that Gwyneth Paltrow was involved. So, Rise Above, I wanted to pause really quickly to answer your question. I think, I'm not quite sure. I didn't catch every minute. I think, did the plaintiffs rest? Anyway, the point is, defense is calling her because she is not a helpful witness for Terry Sanderson. That's why the defense ended up calling her, because everything she says here really undercuts his testimony that he was, out for 5 to 10 minutes, that he had very serious injuries, and his 2 hours that he spent with Whitney, he never once, share that he had. I'm not saying that, look, it's very possible that he had minor a minor concussion, that didn't show up for a little while. But if they're saying that they had really, really hard, catastrophic brain injury, then it would have shown up in those 2 hours, right? Ian, thanks so much for being here. Good night. So I just wanted to answer that, why the defense is calling her and not plaintiffs.
Was it a little surprising that a name that you knew, like a celebrity name, had come up?
Sure. I mean, it wasn't what I expected for the day.
Right. And was Mr. Ramon believable to you?
I wasn't talking a whole ton directly to him because I was busy. I wanted to assess my patient and make sure that he was in a good way and didn't need anything super immediate. So I do recall when it had been brought up that there was a collision, that I had asked if the other party was okay, because I wanted to make sure there wasn't another injured person floating around somewhere.
I see. But you didn't have your own conversation with Mr. Ramon about what he had seen?
No.
And what about, did you hear anything about someone being unconscious, or Mr. Sanderson being unconscious for a few minutes?
No, I didn't get that reported. That would have upped the seriousness of that call for me really fast.
Yeah, so that's my next question. If you had heard Mr. Sanderson was unconscious for 2 minutes or a long time, what would you have done?
That would have been, if you're reporting a loss of consciousness, typically you get to leave the resort in an ambulance. That's kind of where that goes.
Yeah, so this is a really good point, right? If Terry was unconscious for 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 8 minutes or 10 minutes, like I know this to be true as an attorney. We're always trying to manage risk, right? The policies and the procedures that Deer Valley probably has in place when they hear about a customer, right, being unconscious would have immediately triggered, a bunch of procedures that had to be done, right? You have to call the ambulance, you have to take brain injury very, very seriously. And never once, right? Okay, let's say Terry was too out of it to say anything. Why is it that Ramon never once told her, right? Because Ramon was there. Remember, Ramon was there with Terry. Why did Ramon never say once to Whitney, oh, by the way, Gwyneth Paltrow, took him out and he was unconscious for several minutes, and I really think you should check him out. Why was none of that said? I think it's very, very suspicious, and it does not help Terry Sanderson at all. Her testimony, Whitney's testimony.
Even if you're mentating correctly for me there, if I hear you were out cold on the snow for 2 minutes, I'm going to call an ambulance and let you refuse them directly.
Exactly.
And
she would have
what
called.
about loss of consciousness for a shorter period of time than that, even 5 seconds?
Sure. It's kind of any loss of consciousness. If someone said, hey, this person was out, I'm going to start looking at that.
Okay. And you feel confident that you did not hear about anything like that?
I don't recall ever hearing that, no.
And I think I asked you this, but just to make sure, did Mr. Ramon tell you how he believed that, what led him to believe that Ms. Paltrow had been the other person in the collision?
I know, aside from saying the name, he didn't expound.
Okay, so then once you've done that assessment, and we covered that assessment, I should ask, that on the Hill.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, have we covered what you did in that assessment, what you remember in that assessment on the Hill?
Yes, I mean, there's a bit more to it, probably.
Okay,
than
please tell the jury.
over.
Yes, I don't want to cut you off.
Sure, there's it's a head to toe, right? It's not just if you tell me your ribs hurt, I'm absolutely going to look at that, but they can distract from other things. So it's a head to toe assessment to make sure that there's nothing sneaky happening elsewhere. And then I would have palpated the ribs, have him breathe in, make sure that's all going properly.
Got it. Okay. And what were your findings after that head to toe assessment?
The majority was that rib pain. He wasn't having trouble breathing, so I was comfortable with that. But he definitely had something going on in that vicinity.
Okay. Got it. Then, as I understand it, I think Mr. Sanderson has spoken to this, that he was taken on a toboggan. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, I packaged him in the sled and took him down to our first aid area.
Okay. And what happened after that?
We would have gone into first aid and I think sort of reassess once we're in a place where, okay, pull your jacket off, pull your helmet off. Does anything else hurt now that it's been a few minutes? And then from there, I do recall I spent a fair amount of time waiting for his friend to bring the car around. So we chatted for a bit.
And when you say a bit, an estimate of how long that actually happened?
Around 2 hours.
Okay. And how long was the assessment on the Hill?
It was probably 10 minutes. That's a rough estimate, but 10 to 15 before we were packaged and moving.
So you spent a lot more time with him in the first aid clinic.
Yeah.
I
did. Yes.
Yes. It's okay. And
I love James, by the way. He's just he's so polite and he's so nice. And have you guys noticed that when he is doing a cross, there are very few objections. There aren't a lot of sidebars, he's just very linear and he's very professional and he's not obnoxious and he just gets the work done. And I really like him. I think he's a good foil to Owens, right? He balances him well, because I think if there were two Owens, I think this would be terrible for Gwyneth Paltrow.
And is that typical that you would stay with a patient for 2 hours?
It's a bit abnormal. We do try and get back up into rotation, but also GBA's customer service says that we stay with the patient until the end, make sure, A to B, they're on their way and are in a good spot. And it's also just good medical care to not say see you bye.
Right. That makes sense. And was there any reason, aside from waiting for this car, that you needed to stay with him for 2 hours?
I wanted to keep assessing and make sure that he didn't trend downward in any of his symptoms, which he did not. So that was the main reason, was just to make sure he got on his way.
Okay. So was there any indication early in the first aid visit, the reassessment down at the bottom of the hill, that he would need 2 hours of care from you?
No.
Okay. And why do you say that?
He wasn't, trending downward. His symptoms were staying the same with his rib pain, and sort of that rattled kind of feeling that I'd noted on the hill seemed to be dissipating. We were able to converse pretty well.
Okay. And was there any time during all of that afternoon that you spent with Mr. Sanderson?
Yes.
that
Why did it
you,
take 2 hours?
saw evidence of a head injury or a brain injury?
I'm sorry to hear that.
No,
Like
as
that.
time went on, I said this guy is ANO4, so I felt comfortable releasing him private vehicle.
And was that ANO4? Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Okay. And again, that means that he was alert to those 4 different categories you mentioned earlier.
Correct.
And I think he earlier told the jury that you gave him some things to remember.
Yes.
Do you
Yeah.
recall
There's a handful of sort of head assessments you can do, and that's one of them. I'll usually give somebody 3 words, and then sort of periodically throughout the scene time, I'll ask him to repeat that for me.
Right. And was one of them your horse's name?
No, that's not usually one I use.
Oh,
I use Blue Snow 24 without fail the whole time I patrolled.
Okay.
So,
And
Did
let's
they
see,
really?
so- you were doing various tests to make sure that he was fully alert and his cognitive facilities were intact. Is that correct?
correct.
And you found no concern.
He was not trending downward. He was solid.
But did you encourage him to go get further care at all?
I did, yeah.
And what was that for?
He had the rib pain, and I told him if any other concerns came up, then you should talk to whoever sees you at the clinic.
Okay, got it. So let's go to your report. Well, actually, let's finish the day. So you finished with him once he got a ride and you knew that he was okay, that he had someone to take him. What did you do after that?
I would have rotated back to the top. I don't have a specific memory of that, but I would have rotated back to the top of a mountain and checked in.
Okay, got it. And then did you talk to anybody else during the day after you had been with Mr. Sanderson about what had happened?
Sure. When I came in for the evening, he was then our patrol director, Steve Graff. I just sort of mentioned like, oh, hey, it's kind of a interesting sidebar. Somebody said they saw Ms. Paltrow on the slopes today, may have had something to do with my incident. And it was sort of just a 3-minute conversation. And then.
And what was there any discussion about the injuries, or was it just the fact that it was Ms. Paltrow involved?
Just the fact that maybe she was involved.
I see. And you obviously were not there. I think you've made it clear you weren't there at the actual collision. You didn't see what happened, correct?
Correct.
And you never saw Ms. Paltrow that day?
I did not.
You didn't talk to her?
No.
Okay, I'm going to put your report on the screen here. It will
Yep.
also come up on that screen.
Fast forward to that. Let's see.
Jacket, black pants, dark hair, hereby referred to as large male friend. Terry said that he was uncertain what had happened. LMF told Terry that a woman had struck him from
Large
behind, knocking
male
him down.
friend.
LMF stated he had believed that the woman had been Gwyneth Paltrow.
Okay, so there's this note. I think you've already described this, but I want to make sure I understand. Terry said that he was uncertain what had happened. He actually told you that.
Correct.
Tracy,
And
same.
then LMF, who
Don't tell me.
you understand is Craig Ramon, is that right?
Yes.
Told Terry that a woman had struck him from behind, knocking him down. So that was something you heard Ramon tell Terry?
Yes.
He didn't tell you that?
No.
Okay. Let's go to the next section here. Do you mind reading it for us?
I asked if anyone had spoken to the woman. Can I call him Craig? And this is that all right?
Sure, I mean, you know who it is that you
Craig
meant.
said he had asked her if she was all right. He said she had told him she was fine and skied away. During assessment, transport, and time in first aid, Craig continued to say that the woman involved in the collision was Gwyneth Paltrow.
So you remember that he kept bringing up this point of Miss Paltrow's involvement.
I do.
And you don't know how he knew it was her.
No, I don't.
And then I think the last
The only
section,
one that's
which I
run
guess
into
is
them.
a couple paragraphs. Sorry, I cut-
I'm sure
cut that off.
actors and A-listers ski there all the time. They go there for Sundance. I've been there for
So
Sundance.
at Empire First Aid, we were met by 3 others from Terry Skiing Group. Do you remember that?
I do.
And who were those?
According to this, it was a blonde woman, a man, and Debbie.
Okay, and you didn't have any interaction with them, or did you?
I don't specifically recall it. I do know they came into first aid to like check on their friend, but that's the extent of my recollection there.
Okay, and did they stay with Terry the whole time he was there?
No, after, and I don't know how long, everybody went back out skiing and one went to go get the car.
Okay, and left Terry with you alone.
Correct.
Okay. And then there's another sentence here that seems like the similar things you've said before. I recall LMF or Craig reiterating to the group his identification of the woman to have been Gwyneth Paltrow. Do you see that?
I do.
And when you write his identification of the woman, does that mean that it was your understanding that he personally identified the person as Miss Paltrow?
That was, yes, I guess I probably made the assumption that it was a site thing and that's what he had come up with.
Okay. And then eventually Debbie, who had left to retrieve the car, came back and picked him up. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then at the bottom, you identify LMF as Craig.
It came back to me, yes.
Okay. When you say it came back, you couldn't remember his name at the start, but then later remembered it.
Correct.
Okay. As you were writing out and bringing these memories back.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll watch a little more. If you guys have any questions for me, go ahead and drop them in the chat and I'll try to answer them before we leave for the night. But I could do this all night long, but I am like Ian. I do have to get up and go to work and try to listen to the trial, on my breaks and then take care of my 2 kids as well. So, but I am a night owl. So I will be the one doing the night live streams with you all, and then we can watch, Emily during the day.
So is it fair to say that his ribs, or let me I'll ask it this way, were his ribs his chief complaint?
Yes.
And he did not offer any indication to you of a head injury?
No.
Oh, whoops.
No, her dad did not die skiing, but he would take them skiing a lot. So that's why
Now,
skiing was
just
very.
One last thing I want to look at, and then I think we're done. So dizziness, loss of balance, did you observe anything like that?
No, I was monitoring for those things and didn't see them.
Blurred vision,
Oh, this is important.
ringing in the ears,
No,
sensitivity to light,
no,
sensitivity to sound,
no,
mood changes.
not that I observed.
Was he dazed or confused?
No.
Did you talk about headache?
No.
Nausea?
No.
Vomiting?
No.
Yay.
Fatigue?
I don't know if I asked him
Thanks,
about that one.
Okay.
So not that I recall there.
Okay, got it. Any speech problems?
Not that I noticed.
And the jury has seen a picture of you before.
Okay.
Sorry to inform you. We have been talking about you already.
Okay.
And do you remember Mr. Sanderson taking a picture?
I do.
That
Of
was
you.
weird, right?
Yes.
Creepy,
During that
weird.
first
I
date.
mean, why? Why?
Yes, while we were at Empire First Aid.
her?
Yeah, and did you note at any time, was he on his phone and making a post about that picture?
I'm not sure. I don't recall.
Did you help him put together a post at all?
No.
Okay. Did you check his eyes carefully?
I did, yes. We assess for basically pupil reactivity if when you shine a light, if they're constricting and then dilating back out again.
Okay, and you remember doing that?
His were equal and reactive.
Okay, and what does that tell you if they're equal and reactive?
It's just another test to see if potentially there is a brain bleed mostly.
Okay, got it. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Mr. Bueller?
That's sad. I did not know that. He was an actor.
I think the
Oh, yes,
plaintiff's or
maybe.
defendant's exhibit of your
I
report
like
is
Daredevil.
a little bit
Is he
clearer.
the
The one we have is a
blind
little
one, right?
less clear on page 3. What was that exhibit number for defendant?
Which part of it? The first page.
Which one is separate exhibit?
Yeah, 26. It's around,
Thank you.
so 24A is the first page of the incident.
B, C.
Yeah, there it goes, slightly out of order.
The supplemental report is 25B.
Yeah, if that's
Okay.
if that's what you're looking for.
Okay. Are you qualified to diagnose TBI or brain injury?
No, I do not diagnose.
You noted on your report that there was under assessment, the first thing you wrote was mild disorientation, correct?
Correct.
And then rib pain right side, correct?
Correct.
And then transport via toboggan to EFA, that's Empire First Aid.
It is.
Then reassessment, disorientation lessened, but the disorientation was still apparent at the first aid station, right?
Not by the time Mr. Sanderson left, no.
But before, when he got there at the first aid station, he had mild disorientation.
I do not recall that being down there.
Okay. And
They're trying to state that he had
you
issues.
did not believe Craig Ramon, the large male friend, LMF, when he told you or told in your presence that it was Gwyneth Paltrow who had hit Terry from behind?
It seemed like sort of an unbelievable statement at the time.
Like Batman appeared on the scene.
Actually,
That's
if you-
strange.
Similar.
I'll answer that in a minute.
Okay. And it was the supervisor that asked you to write that report that you hand wrote 3 weeks later, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Was Terry Sanderson very appreciative of your assistance that day?
Yes, I remember him being very kind.
Yeah. Do you understand he still is very appreciative of what you did?
I'm glad. Glad I could help him.
Okay.
That's weird.
You said he was rattled on the hill.
Yes.
What is rattle? Well, does rattle mean disorientation?
That is my version of it, yes. That is how I
Thank you so
would
much
present
for
that.
joining, Cindy.
So is rattled or disorientation, is that a possible sign of a concussion?
Oh.
Not in the way that I was
Wow.
presenting it, but I can see how it could come off that way.
Is it possible he could have had a concussion because he was rattled and disoriented?
It's my tests, we were coming out with no, but again, I don't diagnose. So down the line, someone else could come up with something different.
Someone who's qualified to diagnose a concussion?
Correct.
Okay. And you're not qualified to diagnose a
I
concussion?
do not diagnose.
Okay. You encouraged Terry Sanderson to go to the clinic, correct?
I did.
Can you, let's see. So your main goal was to stabilize him and focus on him. You did not investigate the collision matters, even though Craig Ramon said it was Gwyneth Paltrow who hit him from behind.
I did not chase that down, though.
You did not believe Craig Ramon.
When I come up on a collision that one party is gone from, I'm not going to go try and find that person. It's pretty impossible.
Unless it's someone's famous.
It could be, but it's sort of a hearsay thing at that point.
Oh, she called it hearsay. Oh my God, did you guys hear that? She basically called out Ramon and said that this is a weird line of questioning, right? So the plaintiff's attorney is basically trying to get her to admit that she either believes or doesn't believe Ramon. And I think what she's saying is that she doesn't believe him, or at least it's hearsay. And I think it's really, really interesting. Wow. I think we're almost done here, and then I'll do some questions.
Just give me a moment, please.
The microphone.
Since you were trying to reveal that Ms. Paltrow was involved in this, at least her name was mentioned, right?
I was just writing down what I recalled.
Okay, thank you.
Terrible cross.
That's all you're on.
Okay. You're excused, but you may need to be called back again. So please don't discuss the case with anyone and don't watch the proceedings. Thank you.
Okay. So that was, I think they have the manager of the ski resort who shows up afterwards, but I wanted to I grabbed a few questions, or at least comments. Lisa asked, if you win, wouldn't the insurance company want to be reimbursed by the plaintiff? So that is, it depends, right? I don't know each state's jurisdiction. I don't know, sometimes it's different, even county by county. So it's possible that in many cases, the winning party has the losing party pay for attorney's fees. So that is correct. Alaska Guns and Gear, you asked, wouldn't her lawyers have to be licensed? So when I mentioned earlier, would she bring her LA attorneys? Yes. So this is what would happen. She would maybe bring her LA lawyers, and they would have to have Utah lawyers who are licensed there to be the ones who are the trial attorneys. It's very possible the ones in the back who aren't directly doing the crosses and the directs are maybe her LA attorneys. I don't know, right? Of course, I would think it's so expensive to have two sets of attorneys, but she, I think, probably can afford it, especially if, I think this is coming down to a matter of principle for her. She does not want to be known as the A-list actor who left an old man injured and unconscious and bolted away, right? That's the phrase that they like to use, bolted away. I did not connect the dots that he was head of the bar. But it's possible. I think some of you have said that you guys think he's a good lawyer. I think there are times when he's a good lawyer. He does seem to complain and whine a lot, but he is very effective, right? He's like, get the camera off Gwyneth, do this, do that. I mean, he is getting his point across. It's just he's a little bit whiny. I think that's true. Radar Pro, welcome to another attorney. I mean, thank you so much for being here and supporting me. I looked into ADR, not for myself. I mean, it was just, I was drafting an agreement. I was trying to decide if I wanted to have a litigation or ADR in there. And we use jams here a lot in LA and Hollywood. So I really appreciate the work that you do. And yes, it's so much cleaner and easier when you go into arbitration. Oh, Firefly, you asked, am I only covering trials? So my channel is, I'm still very new. I started just a few months ago. I got my third video that kind of went viral about the Try Guys because I used to work at at BuzzFeed, and I kind of understood maybe what was going on behind the scenes, and I explained it. I just hit 20,000 on Friday. I'm so like just pinching myself because I'm so grateful. I went to undergrad many years ago at Berkeley to be an English major. I wanted to be a novelist, but then I went to law school because I'm an immigrant. My parents still don't speak English, and so I had to take care of them and younger siblings. And so I've been an attorney, licensed in California, licensed in LA, California for the last 17 years. The last 15 years, I've been working in Hollywood at companies like Disney and Skydance and BuzzFeed. And so that my videos are a lot about Hollywood news, right? So I've covered the Alec Baldwin story. I cover a lot of one of my last videos about the Lucas films wrongful termination against a producer on the show The Acolyte. I'm about to do a video on the firing of Victoria Alfonso from Marvel, which I think is very interesting because what people have to realize is when an attorney like Patty Glazer takes your case, it means that she believes you have a strong case. So did Disney fire her because she's an outspoken Latina lesbian? Did they fire her because she told the former CEO to fight the gay laws in Florida? Is it because she's ruffled feathers? Now their position is that she was moonlighting and right and working on this other project, which I think is BS because they knew she was working on the project. The film premiered at the Venice Film Festival in September. So I think there's a lot to this story, and her attorney gave a press conference or a press release saying that, that Victoria is going to share the story on either platform. So I think, and of course, Disney being Disney, and I've worked there, I know they're very buttoned up. They immediately slapped back and said there's more to this story. But I bet you they'll probably settle her like they settled Scarlett Johansson, and they also slap back at Scarlett right away too. But Disney tends to, they never. This is why you don't want to go to trial, because this messiness comes out, and Disney is too buttoned up. They do not want their dirty laundry to be aired in public in this way. Okay, so let me see. Let me try to catch any other. A lot of Goop stuff is feminist. I'm not a GP fan. This is from Heart Shaped Isle. I saw her recent work because I love Iron Man. I am about media influence, so lived through the Lindy Chamberlain case here in Oz. So honestly, I okay, I have looked at Gwyneth Paltrow's stuff at Goop. It's crazy expensive. I don't know that I've ever bought anything from there, but she is a very strong proponent. I know people say, like there are these feminine products. Well, she is very, very interested in empowering women and making things that are very taboo more mainstream. And so I think there are good things about Gwyneth Paltrow. I think people who are in the limelight will always have so many critics, right? And so many haters. And as a woman in Hollywood, as a woman of color who's an attorney who has been beaten down a lot, I have seen women get treated very poorly in Hollywood. So I always really do try to support other women. I became an attorney because I want to help those who are voiceless and powerless be protected. And so that's why when Terry Sanderson kept using the word protector, it really irritated me, because when I think of protecting other people, I think of it in a very different way than he does. So it's just weird the way he uses it. So thank you so much for joining. If you didn't get, so yesterday or 2 days ago, I put up a video about the YouTube influencers, the financial influencers, right, who promoted FTX. And I really am pissed at people. Sorry, I don't cuss like Emily does, but I'm very angry at people who scam other people. They basically promoted a business that they should have done their due diligence. And now they're saying, well, it wasn't our job. And I take the position that it was their job. As financial experts, if you're going to be promoting a financial service or product, shouldn't you know what this company is about? Shouldn't you have done your due diligence instead of taking millions of dollars from Sam Bankman-Fried? That really makes me upset. But I will, be covering more trials. I did do a video on the Brian Kohlberger case. I will probably be covering that when that goes to trial in June. I won't, I'm not able to cover gavel to gavel the way Emily does, because she does it so well, and that's her job, her full-time job right now. My full-time job is still in Hollywood. So and I love it. I love being able to come here and talk to you all. This is really a dream come true for me. I'll go into more detail another day about why I decided to do YouTube and why this is so amazing, that it's just such a dream come true for me to be able to make these videos and tell my stories and have like 200, almost 300 of you here tonight. So thank you so much for supporting me. And I probably will be back here tomorrow night. I think there should only be 3 days left of the trial. So around 10 p.m. California time, Maybe I don't know if Ian does his every night, so maybe I'll try to do it towards the end of his time because I don't want to interfere with his time. So thank you so much. I will see you guys tomorrow. Okay, bye. Oh, my ending that I always love to say, which I tell my kids, is we were born perfect and then we forget, right? So we get anxious or we compete with other people in our heads and we forget that we're perfect just the way we are. I am trained as a coach, so I always like to remind people how amazing we are and that if we focus on what's great in our life, more of that will come to us. So this is just so amazing. I'm just like in feeling so much joy from being with you guys. So thank you.